All right, it's time for another bonus podcast of Gun Talk. Hey, of course, I'm Tom Gresham. I'm glad that you are here. I dug into the files and pulled this one up from April of 2001. This is a column I wrote for Guns and Ammo magazine back when I was writing for Peterson's Hunting and Guns and Ammo magazines. And I had a column called Gresham on Guns. And this one applies. It's pretty much the same now as it was then, as it was 50 or 100 years ago. Okay, one quick note I have to just throw in here, personal note. You've heard me talk about GunDealio, our smartphone app, which is very cool. This week, Forbes magazine did a piece on GunDealio and the development of it. Forbes, yes, the economic magazine. It's on the Forbes website, Forbes.com, if you want to see it. I don't remember Forbes ever doing a whole lot. Well, they occasionally do pieces about guns and shooting, but this is not about the politics. This is an economic story. So that's a good thing for us, kind of moves us gun owners out of the political side and into the economic side. But, every little bit helps out there. Okay, now here's that column I wrote in 2001. It's always good to return to the basics, so here we go. The piece is titled, That Old Devil, Gravity. Trajectory, one word which encompasses an entire area of study. We call it exterior ballistics. It's what happens between the time the bullet leaves the muzzle and the impact at the target. With a little effort, it's easy to understand. But the myths about bullet path continue to confuse. Recently, I was chatting with a policeman who is the firearms training officer for his department. We were talking about rifles and trajectory, and he asked a question I could hardly believe. Doesn't a rifle bullet, he asked, go down and then up after leaving the muzzle? I wasn't sure what he meant, so I pulled out a piece of paper and I had him draw it. His visual description was of a bullet that bobbled up and down as it went downrange. I corrected his impression by drawing the typical trajectory, and he seemed to accept it. Only 2 weeks later, a caller to my Gun Talk radio show expressed much the same thought. Where is this coming from? Is this the wiffle ball theory of ballistics, where a bullet can go up, down, or sideways? A solid understanding of physics isn't necessary to grasp bullet trajectory. Real physicists are excused because this is going to be a rough description. If you've shot a BB gun where you can see the projectile in flight, you have seen bullet trajectory. The truth is, it's pretty much the same thing as when an outfielder hurls a baseball toward the infield. Back to basics. If your rifle barrel is precisely level when the gun is fired, the bullet begins dropping the instant it leaves the muzzle. The path, trajectory, is a curve that begins almost flat and steepens farther from the rifle. Roll a ball fast across a table and watch the path as it leaves the surface. Same thing. Yeah, Tom, but why does the bullet hit high at 100 and 200 yards then? Isn't it going up? Yes, it is going up, but only because you aimed the rifle up. The scope sits approximately 1.5 inches above the rifle's bore. In order for the bullet to hit exactly where the scope is looking, the barrel must point slightly upward. The sight line from the scope is level, but the barrel is pointed upward so that the bullet passes through the line of sight twice. Once at about 25 yards going up, and again somewhere downrange on its way back down. Sighting in the scope actually sets it up looking at a slight angle downward from the direction of the barrel, meaning that when you put the crosshairs on the target, the barrel is aiming slightly upward. An outfielder couldn't get the ball to the catcher if he threw the ball level. He has to launch it upward and calculate the trajectory. We do the same thing with our projectile launchers. Fortunately, we can figure out the trajectory of our hunting rifles by looking at a loading manual or a catalog from an ammunition company. The question usually asked next is how much difference it makes when you're shooting at higher elevations. Not much if you're shooting at a target that is level with you. Even at 12,000 feet elevation, the difference in air density is hardly enough to make a difference in trajectory. Just aim at the target. However, at 12,000 feet, you undoubtedly are in the mountains, bringing into play the most interesting aspect of trajectory, shooting uphill and downhill. Don't confuse yourself. If the angle is steep, either uphill or downhill, the bullet will hit higher than you expected. Aim lower, but not off the animal, just lower on the animal. Why does the bullet hit higher? It's a matter of vectors, which I don't understand. But basically, it's the bullet is affected by gravity over the horizontal distance it travels, I think. Fire at a 45-degree angle up or down at a target 250 yards away, and the horizontal distance is actually less than 200 yards. Still having a problem with the concept? Okay, if you fire straight up or straight down, do not do this for real. This is a mental exercise. There will be no drop due to gravity, right? We established that the barrel is pointing slightly upward relative to the line of sight, so the bullet will cross the line of sight at about 25 yards from the muzzle. But without gravity pulling it back down, it will never cross the line of sight again when shot straight up or down. Spend a little time with the trajectory tables in a loading manual, make a small drop chart for your rifle, and tape the chart to the stock or the scope. Then you won't be tempted to take that 500-plus yard shot, and you sure won't tell people that you held right on at that distance. Not unless you were able to repeal the law of gravity. For additional credit, have fun thinking about a bullet fired from a .45 ACP pistol traveling 900 feet per second. It's fired, however, straight backward from a jet traveling 613 miles an hour, or about 900 feet per second. As seen from the ground, what happens? All right, now, of course, this was written in 2001. Long-range shooting was not nearly as popular then as it is today, and this was primarily for hunters. Now, of course, we have really good rangefinders, and we have scopes that will adjust the trajectory or the sight. You can just dial it in, and you're good to go. We've learned to shoot in wind. A lot of people can shoot longer distances very well. But the basics, the physics still apply because, as I think it was Newton said, the physics are everywhere the same. And just because I think it's interesting, let me read you the last little bit of this piece I wrote in 2001. Number 1 on your agenda. Surely every gun owner understands that the Bush administration is under heavy fire from the anti-gun crowd. The Democrat Party has declared war and plans to win control of the Senate and House in 18 months. This is the party that says there is no Second Amendment right to own a gun. Item number 1 on the agenda of every gun club meeting should be how to get their members registered to vote. Since a third of gun owners, maybe more, are not registered, we can have a major impact on the coming elections. Outgoing President Clinton credited the gun issue for the defeat of Al Gore. That's great, but we barely defeated this anti-gun candidate. And if we don't work every month between now and November 2002 to register shooters, we are going to lose seats and control. How about discounts or some sort of premium when a member or customer in a gun store shows his or her voter registration card? You're either helping to pull the wagon or you're sitting in it, letting others carry your weight. Now, of course, in 2015, it's exactly the same thing. A third to a half of gun owners are not registered to vote. Same deal. We're looking at possibility of another Clinton in the White House. Same deal. You're either helping to pull the wagon or you're sitting in it, letting others carry your weight. Same deal. Isn't it interesting, and perhaps maybe just a little bit dismaying, that we are talking about the same things and facing the same challenges year after year, decade after decade? I can go back to the 1950s and show you articles in major publications that say, turn in your handguns. We have to ban all handguns. We're still fighting that fight. And this is why I say we will never win. We have small wins and we have some defeats, but it is an ongoing battle we always will be fighting. So don't think, okay, well, if we do this one thing, it will be over. No. You just have to set yourself up mentally to the fact that this is an ongoing battle for the rest of your life. You are in the fight. It doesn't have to weigh you down. It's just one of the things you do. It's one of your commitments to life. It's part of your duty, part of your obligation, and honestly, it is an opportunity. I think it's a great opportunity to get involved in something that's very important. To say, I'm going to simply be always involved in gun rights. I'm going to start by making sure I belong to the right groups, as many as I can, that I contribute, that I help the right candidates, that I speak out. I don't remain silent. I don't just shrug and say, oh, gee, that's the way it is. That when I see something on the news or I read something in the newspaper that's wrong, I call them on it every single time. And yes, I understand. Sometimes you just get tired of it. Well, okay, what? Give yourself a break. Take a long 24 hours to take a break and then get back in the fight, because we need every single one of us. In the meantime, bring more people into the shooting sports. Take people out to the range. Invite them to become one of us instead of one of them. You know, a lot of people are neither anti-gun nor pro-gun. They're just kind of in the middle somewhere. But once you take them to the range and they have a bunch of fun doing that, only then should you start gently to educate them on gun rights and what's going on. Very interesting. Anyway, I thought you would enjoy that from 2001. Gravity. Hey, you know what? It's still here. All right, go do some shooting. Take somebody with you. We'll see you on the radio at Gun Talk.